Hello, my name is Jason Leahy, Executive Director of the Illinois Principals Association. Thanks for joining me for this IPA talk, and grateful to have with me our State Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Tony Sanders. Tony, thanks for jumping on Zoom here with me. I know you're actually not far away. You are in Springfield, but I know you're kind of been back and forth between the agency and the state fair. You've been spending a lot of time down at the fairgrounds this last few days.
I have been. So I'm wearing my official State Board of Education shirt.
Yep.
My polo. I typically would be in a tie, but since we're going out to the fair every day, I figure I'd just come in the polo so I don't have to change before I go out there. But I've been enjoying the state fair. It's been amazing to see the number of people stopping by our booth within the governor's tent, and this team here at ISB volunteering their time to go out there and talk to people and share all the good work that's happening across our school districts in Illinois has been really powerful. So it's a good thing to be at.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a real gotcha question here right out of the gate, Tony. So like when you're at the fair, all health, considerations aside, like what's your go-to fair food when you hit the state fair?
It would have to be the pork tent. I mean, anything coming out of the pork tent, the pork chops. I know when you and I went out and walked around a little bit together out there, and I felt really guilty because we went to go visit the newly born piglets.
I know the piglet
and then we
parade.
immediately went over and had some pork chop sandwiches. But I would say that pork is really is outstanding. So I would have to say the pork kebabs wrapped in bacon. Not the healthiest presentation, but absolutely delicious.
Yeah, bacon goes well with pretty much anything, in my opinion. And I didn't even put that. That tells you because I'm a farm kid. My parents are both educators. I made that pretty well known. But also grew up on a farm, raised a lot of hogs, and so I sometimes miss the connection. The fact that we just went through where they were farrowing the pigs, the brand new babies that had just been born, and then we went and had lunch there with a pork chop sandwich. So that's just the circle of life, I suppose.
It is.
Anyway,
it is.
Yeah, but I highly recommend going to the tent, taking the quiz that your team put together. I did very poorly, and with your help, I made sure. I think I got one question right more than you, but that was only because you helped me out there with a couple. So that was nice. But it's good to see your team there and get to connect with everybody. And the weather's been good, which in fact, the way looking at the forecast, been a good week this week. It's going to get hot next week. So a good time there at the fair. Well, let's pivot into more education related things, Tony. Of course, a lot of schools have either been started for a bit or getting started this week. Today's date is August 17th, just to give a little context. But my kids started back at school yesterday. They go to Glenwood there in the Chatham School District. So a lot of things are rolling along here. But as you got started back in the spring, kind of late winter, early spring time frame, you spent a lot of time doing listening, getting around, talking to a lot of people, was able to follow some of your exploits on social media, which you're always great to document. But you made it very clear that time was to do a lot of listening and just hearing from people. So I'm just kind of curious, what are some things that you observed getting around the state and listening to people in your current role now as state superintendent?
Yeah, it was really it was a wonderful opportunity to go out and visit so many different school districts and schools and get to hear from principals and from superintendents and from board members, legislators. So it was my 90 days. I learned more than what I thought I actually knew about the State Board of Education and state policy. And so I came away with several key areas that I think we need to focus on as a state agency here in the next couple of years. One of them, I updated the organizational chart to kind of reflect some of my priority areas. So assessment and accountability is one big area. I know that there's been a lot of talk about the state assessments and what is the purpose for our state assessment system. And these next few years, we need to be really digging in on that and having some deeper conversations about assessments and accountability. And so within the agency, they had separated in prior organizational structures, separated out the assessment department. They put it into a research and evaluation department from the accountability systems, and they were completely separate. So I brought those back together under an executive director for assessment and accountability. Ray Clements just took that position
Yeah.
within the agency and will be leading that department. And so
Great choice, by the
that's
way.
she's amazing.
Really like Ray Clements. She's super smart where all of this is concerned.
Absolutely. We have a lots of great team members.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I heard loud and clear was the desire for the state board to be more visible in school districts. And so I've added a chief of staff position. And as you know, Dr. Kamako Patterson has come on board as my chief of staff. That's really to allow me the opportunity to be more visible in school districts. And at the same time, we've launched an initiative here where we're asking every employee at the state board to go spend a day in a school or in a school district doing a job similar to theirs. So this isn't an opportunity for a person to go on a chaperone, a field trip for their kid. Yeah. This is really about going to a school or going to a school district and doing a job similar to the one that you do here at the state board, so that you have an understanding, so that our team here has an understanding of what happens in schools and in school districts. And at the same time, it puts a face to ISB in the field. So the team here has been really excited about this opportunity. We'll be launching it in probably mid-September or October. We'll have a coordinator that will help us find a school district for employees to go visit. So I'm hoping your members will open their doors if they get a call from somebody at the state board, and if somebody wants to come in and work alongside you for the day, I'm hoping that people will take us up on that.
Well, and hopeful that maybe we'll have some districts volunteer, right? So this would be a good opportunity to encourage those that might be interested to be paying attention for when this comes out, and then maybe even raising their hand.
Yep, I agree. The third big bucket is around our statewide system of support. And people always ask me what I don't know that everybody knows what that means, but as you know, currently under our federal ESSA plan, we serve really at the state board level, the bottom 5% of school districts that are comprehensive, and some of the targeted school districts or schools that are targeted status based on our current accountability system. And so within the new organizational structure, we're really having some deeper conversations around our statewide system of support. How do we involve our regional offices of education in supporting continuous school improvement? How do we as an agency support continuous school improvement? And within that, part of the organizational changes also addressed this topic and included the development of a brand new office called the Office of Rural Schools. So we have a new person that oversees the Office of Rural Schools. One of the things I walked away from my statewide tour learning was the difference between urban, suburban, and rural school districts. And as you know, I used to live in the Springfield area in a small town where the superintendent is also the principal. Right. And
maybe the bus driver.
And could be the bus driver, hopefully not the bus driver, but could be the bus driver, could be, but they end up being the food service director, the director of transportation, the director of everything, typically with a bookkeeper, and it's different. And so how we support those school district leaders and principals has to be a little bit different than how we support our urban and suburban school districts that have a chief school business official and other people to surround them to help them do the work. So those are a few of the areas that I'm working on. And obviously that's on top of all the other work we're doing around early childhood and teacher shortage and those other priority areas that will have to be a focus.
Yeah. So you referenced the teacher shortage, Tony. Obviously, that's top of mind for people. I haven't jumped on like the ISA job bank today to see kind of where the numbers currently sit. It's obviously still too high of, the positions that are left open, instructional positions, administrative positions, all of that. We had a pretty big investment of dollars, to help combat that. This was obviously a strong priority of the governor, which we're sure grateful for here. Can you talk to us a little bit about, what districts who probably are aware of kind of what's going on, but just need to maybe be reminded of what's available to them to hopefully help combat a little bit of what we're dealing with right now as we continue to seek, longer term solutions?
Absolutely. So before I was even offered this position, I was having some conversations. In my former district, we had established a new program for any educational support professional, bus driver, paraeducator, noon hour supervisor, you name it. If you wanted to be a teacher, we decided that as a school district, we would offer you the opportunity to get tuition reimbursement, go back to school and become a teacher. And as soon as we opened up that opportunity, we had 60 internal candidates sign up to become teachers. And I started sharing that out with the governor's office and with legislators, because I thought this is really a cool thing that we're helping to advance people that have a desire or are already in education and have this strong desire to become teachers and potentially future principals. And they're right in our district. All they need is that little bit of financial help to get them across the finish line. And I was really pleased when Governor Pritzker announced in his State of the State this idea of doing some teacher pipeline grants to really build a pipeline of future teachers using, whether it's internal capacity, such as I mentioned that we were doing in U46, or recruiting from other states, or developing internal programs that might look a little bit different than what we were doing in U46, whatever it might be. And so the governor really heeded that. The legislature decided to fund it. So as you know, there was $45 million teacher pipeline grants that went to 170 school districts where we have the most vacancies. And we're really hoping over these 3 years of funding that we can see a dent made in the teacher pipeline and really start growing our own here in the state of Illinois. I'd love to say that that's going to solve all of our long-term problems, but I just don't know that that's the case. I think as leaders, we all need to be cognizant of a couple of things. Number one is what are we doing internally in our districts and in our schools for succession planning? What are we doing to make sure we're building a pipeline internally for all positions? But beyond that, I think it's how are we setting the conditions for learning and a culture in our schools and in our districts that people want to join. We have to start re-uplifting public education to its rightful place as a great institution and a great place for people to work. We could get into a conversation about, is the pay enough or is the pension enough?
Right.
But at the end of the day, people come into public education not for the money, not for the pension, but because they have this strong sense of putting students above themselves. And you see it time and time again in our principals and in our teachers, that they're not here for the accolades. They really are here because they just care about kids.
Right.
And,
well, I think
we have to uplift that.
Well, I absolutely agree with that. And one of the things I appreciate about you, Tony, is you're a reader and you're always trying to think through and look at just new ways of trying to handle things and seeing what are some high quality practices out there. What I find interesting when I think about just organizations and people, being motivated in the work that they're doing, I think I've shared with you a book that I've read long ago, and it might even feel a little dated now, but it's a good one. I think still is the book Drive by Daniel Pink. And he talks in there, of course, about compensation, that being important. But beyond that, it's like people just want to make sure that they can take care of themselves and their family. But then he said other really strong predictors of people feeling good about their work is they want to do meaningful work. But we can't think of anything much more meaningful than educating kids, right? And then the second one is they want to have autonomy in their work. They want to have agency in their work. And so, I think as we think about improving the educator pipeline moving forward, we kind of have to look at all three of those pillars, the compensation and the meaning of the work that we're doing and making sure that we're elevating that, and which I think is what maybe would initially attract people into the profession or consider it. And then the third one is just how do we make sure that people do have some appropriate autonomy and agency in what they're doing. That doesn't mean we just kick accountability out the door, but feels like we start all those conversations with, well, how do we know that people are going to do it and that we're proving that they're doing it? And yeah, it's like there's a time and a place for that. But if we provide autonomy and agency, and I'm editorializing here, so I apologize, but I feel like the accountability will follow suit. People, if they know that they have some real empowerment and power and importance in their work, the accountability will take care of itself. And
I wholeheartedly agree. As I think about the idea of a teacher walking into a classroom, shutting the door, and being an island among them, to themselves, is just not what we know makes we know that's not going to be a great place to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
A great place to work is one where you do have that collective teacher efficacy, and we all read about it. We all know Hattie's work around this, but there's something really to that.
Yeah.
You can't be all alone in this work. You can't be. We have to do it together. And so the more that we can have teachers having conversations about instruction, even about their personal lives, the more that
Right.
we have those
Do it in
that
community,
PLC
right?
time
Do it in
and
community.
protect that community, that is critical.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And I think it'll
absolutely.
bring people back into this profession.
Well, before we get off the point on just the educator pipeline, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up and just offer gratitude for the investment that's gone into the school leader pipeline. 1.8 million that's gone in to support 180 or so individuals. We've had the first cohort is starting their second year. The second cohort is starting their first year, and IPA is responsible for 100 of those slots, so to speak. And what I've been encouraged by is when we did the application process this spring for those individuals, we had over 250 applications for those 100 slots that we had available. Then those individuals that were approved, we're in the process of letting them know right now they'll get the tuition support, some mentoring, coaching along the way, and just people to stand with them as they're working through their licensure process, their master's degrees and things. But I'm just heartened by the fact that it wasn't like we were out there, having to tell the bowl or the bell or toll the bell, or if that's even the right way to say it, but really be pressing people to consider, this opportunity. Folks really obviously came forward, and sure grateful for that. So I just think we've got to consider how we continue to support these kinds of things, because we've heard stories already from people like, I would have never been able to do this without this level of support, the financial and the other things that we've put into place. So just grateful for that.
Absolutely. No, I agree of its importance. And I'm glad that, one of the blessings of the ESSER funding that we received was that we were able to do things such as that. And I think the challenge for all of us will be at the state level and at the local school district level and at the school level is, how do we sustain these things that we started using these federal funds, and how do we prioritize that to make sure that they continue?
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely. Well, a couple other things, Tony. I just bat your direction. If you just have thoughts, updates related to, and these are things that I know are at the beginning stages or being formulated right now, but obviously will really be impactful to the work of the agency moving forward, is the strategic plan. I know, particularly with you coming on new, state superintendent this year. And of course, we got several new board members now that are taking positions, and I know that you seated a couple of other new board members this week during the board meeting. And then also the literacy plan is something else that's currently in play. So I know, again, dealing with two things that are taking shape. I know the board's going to be dealing with the strategic plan more moving forward as they're meeting. But just kind of curious about any thoughts that you've got related to those couple of items.
Absolutely. So I'm looking, the board will be having discussion. As you noted, we have two new board members. So we now have a full state board of education. It's an amazing board. We have a great board. If you ever have a chance, I did a weekly message just highlighting what a strong state board we have from an education perspective. Everybody has some expertise that they're bringing to the table. It's a really strong state board. We will be having some conversations around the strategic plan, probably not to rethink the buckets of work that are already on the current strategic plan, but really what are we going to put in the buckets underneath the three primary pillars of student achievement, elevating educators, and operational efficiency. Then trying to figure out what might belong under those that align to my 90 days of listening and learning and the long-term vision for the state. And so we'll be engaging those conversations in the fall, and then coming back out to the field to get some feedback on the strategic priorities before they are finalized. But I don't think we have to really recreate the wheel on this. I think we just need to really make sure that the work that we're doing is aligned to some vision. The other thing, as you mentioned, was the literacy plan, where we've been doing a series of statewide visits. Our teaching and learning team really did a great job taking, and as you recall, a lot of different pieces of legislation around literacy that were at the state capitol, asking for some time to develop a task force to really develop a long-term literacy plan for the state, engaging stakeholders. They got that through the legislature, engaged with stakeholders, drafted up this literacy plan that's been on the streets, still is out on the streets asking for feedback. So if any of your members want to read it, give us some feedback. We're still open to any feedback people have on the literacy plan. But it's really about how do we approach literacy at the state level and at the local level. What is best practice? How do we embed those best practices within school districts and our literacy long term? And then also, what are the implications for higher education? What are some of the things that we need to do to address higher education so that we are ensuring that our teachers are coming out of schools prepared, really ready to teach reading to kids? How do we make sure that, there was a couple public comments at the last board meeting where people talked about if you went to medical school and you graduated without knowing how to take a pulse, people would question, whether the medical program did an adequate job in preparing you if you didn't have that core competency. And their point was, to our literacy plan, if you're graduating candidates, especially for early childhood education or those early grades, and you don't understand or know how to teach reading to kids or help kids learn how to read, then we might want to have some more conversations about what that might look like. So the literacy plan is out there. Certainly it is just a guiding document. It does not tell districts what they must do, but it will ground our work moving forward as a state, I believe.
Well, so I had an IPA talk about this with Erica Tiemann and Kirsten Parr, who have been, front and center in this work and doing a really nice job. Yes. Which I'm grateful for. And they offered a lot of good perspective and context, and also helping walk through the development process. But one of the things that I shared with them, and I'll just say to you, is I'm grateful for the leadership, yours and then them and the others that have been involved here, getting a hold of this issue and really getting out front so that we can come at this really important topic that really has a lot of emotion tied to it, right? I mean, you and I have chatted a little bit about this, about if there's one subject area that people get really emotionally tied to, are those early childhood and early elementary educators, that when it comes to their reading instruction, right? I mean, it's just really a deep passion, and I'm grateful for it. But with all of that, it's been important for the agency to be out front, leading the way, because it helped us with policy conversations at the Capitol when several bills were being proposed, and we were able to kind of point people in the direction of, let's let the agency do what it's best at, which is to formulate this plan and give us some vision and a way of moving forward, rather than a scattershot approach at how to deal with it in 4 different pieces of legislation, or however many there were as usual, too many to track. But this has been helpful on several fronts, not just looking at best educational practice, but also ensuring that we come at this in a smart way from a policy perspective as well. So grateful for that. Yeah, appreciate that. Well, Tony, I know you've got to get out the door here to get to the state fair. Appreciate your time here this morning, but with school starting up, just thought I'd give you the floor for a second to offer up maybe any last words of encouragement that you may have for the field here as we get rolling this school year.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just say, we have amazing educators in the state of Illinois that work really hard every day to really transform the lives of children, and they deserve our praise, and they deserve to be uplifted in our communities. And so anybody that's watching this that's not a principal or a teacher, make sure you thank your principals, your teachers, your superintendents, your back office staff, your bus drivers, your paraeducators. This is really hard work that we do. So specifically to your principals, I would say, number one, take care of yourselves. You can't serve others if you're not taking care of yourself. And so, like Jason, you and I have talked about a lot about this. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself physically and mentally so that you can serve others. That's really, really important. And just know that you've got this. You've done it before. We can no longer, that thing that happened, the blip that happened a few years ago is over and done with, and let's return to some normalcy and recognize that the kids that are coming into our schools today are really ready for us to take them to the next level. They're ready to see us take public education and transform it into something that they've never seen before. And this is our great opportunity to make that happen. So be flexible, be innovative, have fun, and take care of yourself.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Tony.
Yeah.
Again, my name is Jason Leahy, Executive Director here at the Illinois Principals Association, with our State Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Tony Sanders. As always, if there's anything that IPA can do for you, don't hesitate to give us a call or check us out on the web at ilprincipals.org. Take care.